My dear brothers and sisters, there are moments in life when a believer feels completely exhausted by the test they are carrying. You make dua for months, sometimes years. You try to stay patient, you try to stay strong, but deep inside your heart feels tired. The pain keeps returning, the tears keep falling, and you begin wondering if relief will ever come. Maybe right now you are silently carrying a burden. Nobody around you truly understands. You smile in front of people while your heart is fighting battles only Allah knows about. And perhaps you are asking yourself tonight, Ya Allah, when will this test finally end? But one of the most beautiful things about Allah's mercy is that He never tests a believer forever. Every hardship has an ending written by Allah. Every storm eventually reaches its final moment. And before relief arrives, Allah often sends signs to the heart of the believer. Sometimes He places unexpected calmness inside your chest after months of anxiety. Sometimes He strengthens your connection with Him through prayer and Quran in a way you never experienced before. Sometimes He removes certain people, distractions, or fears from your life because He is preparing your soul for the next chapter. And sometimes, just before the doors of relief open, Allah teaches you complete trust in Him, so your heart learns that the victory was never from your own strength, but from Allah alone. You know, many believers think the test is only about pain, but often the test is also about transformation. Allah changes hearts during hardship. He softens souls through tears. He teaches patience through waiting. He teaches sincerity through helplessness. And when the believer finally grows closer to Allah through the struggle, the relief begins approaching in ways they cannot yet see. Sometimes the sign that your test is ending is not that life suddenly becomes easy overnight, but that your heart starts becoming stronger than the hardship itself. Look at the stories of the prophets. Relief always came after patience reached its deepest point. Yusuf alayhi salam was finally honored after years of betrayal and imprisonment. Ayub alayhi salam was healed after enduring immense suffering with patience and faith. Yunus alayhi salam was rescued from darkness after sincerely turning back to Allah. Every story reminds us that Allah's help arrives with perfect timing, never too early, never too late. So if you have been struggling for a long time, do not lose hope now. The fact that your heart is still turning toward Allah is itself a sign of His mercy upon you. Perhaps Allah is already preparing the answer to the dua, as you cried over in the middle of the night. Perhaps the chapter of pain is closer to ending than you realize. And perhaps this reminder itself is Allah telling your heart to hold on just a little longer before the ease finally arrives. When a believer goes through hardship, one of the most important truths Allah teaches them is that relief is never random, and it never comes before the heart is prepared for it. People often think that the end of a test means everything suddenly becomes easy again, as if life simply resets overnight. But in reality, before Allah brings relief, He often works deeply within the heart of the believer. He shapes it, strengthens it, purifies it, and brings it closer to Him in ways that comfort alone could never achieve. Human beings naturally want quick solutions. When something hurts, they want it gone immediately. When a problem appears, they want it fixed instantly. When tears fall, they want happiness to return without delay. But Allah, in His perfect wisdom, knows that the heart is not just something that needs relief. It is something that needs transformation. And sometimes the struggle itself is what creates that transformation. There are moments in life when a believer begins to notice something subtle happening inside them during hardship. At first, they may not recognize it as anything meaningful. They may only feel tired, emotional, confused, or overwhelmed. But slowly, without even realizing it, their connection with Allah starts becoming stronger. The same person who once delayed their prayers now finds themselves turning to Salah more frequently. The heart that once felt distant begins to find comfort in sujood. The tongue that rarely made dua starts speaking to Allah more sincerely than ever before. This change is not accidental. It is part of Allah's preparation before relief arrives. Sometimes Allah allows difficulty not to break a person, but to rebuild them in a better way. A person may have been living with distractions, attachments, and priorities that were slowly pulling their heart away from Allah. Comfort can sometimes make people forget their dependence on Him. Ease can sometimes make hearts become attached to dunya without realizing it. But when hardship arrives, everything changes. The distractions lose their importance. The heart begins searching for meaning again. And in that searching, the believer finds Allah in a deeper, more sincere way. There is also something very powerful that happens during long periods of patience. The believer begins to learn humility. At the beginning of a test, a person may still believe they are in control of everything. They try different solutions. They rely on their own strength. They depend on people. They plan endlessly. But as time passes and nothing seems to change, they begin to realize something important. Human strength is limited. Human plans are fragile. Human control is an illusion. And slowly the heart starts turning away from dependence on creation and begins relying more on the Creator. This shift in the heart is not small. It is one of the greatest forms of spiritual growth a believer can experience. Because when a person finally understands that only Allah controls outcomes, their entire perspective on life changes. They stop panicking as much. They stop overthinking every detail. They stop relying completely on people. Instead, they begin to trust that whatever Allah is doing, even if they do not understand it now, carries wisdom that will become clear later. And this is exactly why relief does not always come immediately. If Allah removed the hardship before the heart was strengthened, the believer might return to old habits, old distractions, or old levels of negligence. But when the hardship lasts long enough to change the heart, the relief becomes something much deeper than just the removal of pain. It becomes a transformation of the entire soul. Think about how often people only start praying sincerely after going through something difficult. Many only begin to feel the sweetness of dua when they reach a point where no one else can help them. Many only develop true patience after they are tested beyond their comfort zone. And many only realize the importance of Allah's closeness after everything else feels distant. This is not punishment. This is preparation. Sometimes Allah also removes certain things from the heart before He replaces them with something better. A person may be attached to a dream, a relationship, a job, or a specific outcome. But through hardship, Allah slowly detaches the heart from that attachment. At first, it feels like loss. It feels like disappointment. But over time, the believer begins to realize that their heart is becoming lighter, freer, and more focused on Allah. This emotional detachment is part of the healing process that happens before relief arrives. Another beautiful aspect of this process is sincerity. During ease, a person's worship can sometimes become routine. They pray but without deep presence. They make dua but without emotional depth. They remember Allah but often while distracted. However, during hardship, sincerity becomes stronger. The heart becomes more present. The dua becomes more emotional. The connection becomes more real. The believer is no longer just going through motions. They are speaking to Allah from the depths of their heart. And Allah values sincerity more than anything else. So before He changes the situation, He often changes the heart first. Because a heart that has been purified through hardship is more ready to receive blessings in a way that does not lead to arrogance or negligence. There is also wisdom in timing. Allah knows exactly when a believer is ready for relief. Sometimes a person is still emotionally unstable, still spiritually distracted, or still attached to harmful patterns. If relief came too early, they might not handle it properly. But when the heart becomes stronger, more patient, and more connected to Allah, then the same relief that was once delayed becomes a blessing that brings gratitude instead of heedlessness. This is why the test itself is not separate from the mercy of Allah. The test is part of the mercy. The waiting is part of the mercy. The struggle is part of the mercy. Because through it all, the believer is being shaped into someone who is not only ready for relief, but also ready to appreciate it in the right way. Sometimes people think Allah is silent during hardship. But in reality, Allah is working on the heart in ways that are not visible. He is removing arrogance. He is increasing patience. He is building trust. He is strengthening reliance. And when the heart finally reaches that state of surrender, where it says, Ya Allah, I trust you completely no matter what, that is often the moment when relief begins to approach. Because a heart that has learned to trust Allah deeply is a heart that is ready for ease without losing its connection to Him. And that is the true purpose of every test, not just to end the difficulty, but to bring the believer close to Allah in a way that remains even after the hardship is gone.